Hello BookTube and welcome to Weekly Reads. As you can see, I've rearranged my bedroom. It took quite a while, about 3 hours all told, and I'm not entirely sure I like how I've arranged my books. So far they are in a rather scattershot order, particularly the science fiction and fantasy, who I prefer to have in alphabetical order so I can find them. But I'm going to give this a few days, maybe until my next book haul, assuming I haul any science fiction and fantasy that would necessitate a arrangement. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, let's move on to what I've read and what I plan to read this coming weekend and following work week. But first, I have a late coming book to haul. I ordered Voluntary Servitude by Mark Wunderlich earlier this month, and it came in today. So after my July book haul, so I'm going to go ahead and haul it now and also move it to another pile real quick. So I've had a pretty good reading week. I've finished 3 books. I've read and finished A History of the Arab Peoples by Albert Hourani. Read it over the weekend and loved it. This is a fantastic history of the Arabs, primarily through intellectual and cultural history rather than political history. But it is just amazing, particularly with like the 20th century and 20th century Arabic literature and music. I was quite pleased to see several references to Nikki and also to Kulthum. And I also really liked sort of how, even though Hourani doesn't quite mention it, the afterword Malith Ruthven draws more explicit attention to sort of how sort of the political culture of the Arab world sort of goes back to certain strands that Ibn Khaldun 13th or 14th century Arab writer kind of noticed, and how sort of dynasties rise and fall, and how sort of that dynastic sort of structure can be applied to more contemporary Arabic governments. But anyway, this was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. From there, I moved on to Stony the Road by Henry Louis Gates Jr. This is a book that looks at the rise of Jim Crow and the response on the part of the African American community to the rise of Jim Crow and the steady withering away of African American civil rights in the immediate aftermath of Reconstruction. And this book is fantastic. I greatly enjoyed it. It's more of a literary theory book than it is maybe a proper history, but still it is fantastic. Shorter than I thought it was. I managed to read it in about 3 days, when I had a little less reading time than normal. But really, really love this book. Next up, since I had some extra reading time, I decided to read a work of poetry. Edward Field's Counting Myself Lucky, Selected Poems, 1963 to 1992. So Edward Field is a poet whose career spans pretty much about 50 years. Well, over 50 years. He got started with the, like, obviously in the 60s, and his career sort of continued up till about a few years ago. I think his last published book was in the early 2010s. And I quite enjoy his work. I first discovered him in an anthology of gay poetry, word of mouth. And his work just really intrigued me. So I eventually picked up this collection, Counting Myself Lucky, and two others, A Variety of Photoplays and Stars in My Eyes, which is my favorite Edward Field collection. And it should be a common refrain in my videos. I regret having gotten rid of it. I would like to have it back. And so this collection does include quite a few of the poems in Variety Photoplays and Stars in My Eyes, although it doesn't include the title collection to, or title poem to Stars in My Eyes, which I really enjoy. But anyway, it does have Whatever Happened to Make Caspar, which is probably my favorite Edward Field poem. So Edward Field's work is at times both intensely personal, to the almost sort of pornographic, and really sort of visceral, and also very sort of in tune with popular culture. He has several poems that are like narrative poems that take on Hollywood in a very sort of narrative way. So I really love these poems. And then I read today, I mentioned I wanted to get a start on the Locust Awards anthology. And so I realized I've read pretty much all men this week, and I wanted to sort of read a story by a woman. And so I picked Souls by Joanna Russ. And I didn't quite like it. I've never gotten on with Joanna Russ's work, unfortunately. So, yeah. So, moving on to what I'm going to be reading this weekend and into next week. Pretty much there are several readathons and reading challenges that are coming up in August that I want to not necessarily fully participate in, but sort of adjacently participate in. So one of these is Women in Translation Month, and unfortunately I don't have many works by women in translation. I really don't have many works of anybody in translation, and that's something I do want to work on correcting. And so for Women in Translation Month, I'll be reading Sappho. It's translated by Mary Barnard, which I'm looking forward to. I've read it a few times, this collection, and quite enjoy it, and look forward to rereading it. I'm also going to be reading Voluntary Servitude by Mark Wunderlich, because it is a slim volume of poetry. It is about 56 pages. There is also Summer Fling Readathon, where we read romance novels. Romance is a genre that I'm not terribly familiar with, and I would like to give it a try. So there are two romance novels I want to read, or try to read this week. Debbie Macomber's Denim and Diamonds. This is a book I'm borrowing from my mom, who does read romances, and Steve Johnny, who has recommended Debbie Macomber's work multiple times in his videos. excuse me, I'm also planning on reading Love Lessons by Heidi Cullinan. It's an ebook I have on my Kindle, so I can't physically show it. Also, there's a Faulkner readathon in August, and so I'll be reading The Sound and the Fury with them. I've read this once before for a class and quite enjoyed it. So far, my favorite Faulkner novels are The Sound and the Fury and As I Lie Dying, and I'm not entirely sure about Light in August. I probably should give that another go. And Absalom, I remember bailing on. Although, I would like to have another go at that one too. And if I still have any time to read, I'm also planning on finally getting around to reading The Pearls by Deborah Chester. I've been meaning to get to this book for about 3 weeks now, and I really should get on it. And finally, if I have any time left over, I will be starting the collected poetry of Nikki Giovanni. So that's all I have for weekly reads. I will have another video up here in a few minutes to talk about the semifinals of the BookTube Prize, and then I will see you hopefully on Monday with another video, if not, definitely on Tuesday with the tag. So until a few minutes from now, thank you BookTube, have a great weekend, and stay safe.